time to think big and to understand all that we can accomplish.
I'm on a one-way mission in life, can't you see? All I got is this moment, so don't persecute me. Oh no.
Not acceptable that young African Americans are walking down a street in a city in America and are being brutalized by police. This is your capital and not just the capital of the billionaire class.
Brothers and sisters, please listen to me and realize that our moments are only fragments of eternity.
The American people are sick and tired of seeing the disappearance of the great middle class of this country. They're sick and tired of working longer hours for low wages, while at the same time 99% of all new income generated is going to the top 1%, and the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%.
So reach out with your love to those who you meet. We ain't got no time to waste. Don't get shuffling their feet. Get what you want. You got to get what you got. It's a long way to the top. Don't you ever stop.
We have seen in the last 30 years a massive shift of wealth and income from ordinary Americans to the very richest people in this country. And the American people are saying enough is enough. We need to create an economy that works for all of us and not just a handful of billionaires.
99% of all new income is going to the top 1%.
Reach way on down in your soul. I hope you find everything that you're searching for.
I've not been a great fan of the Supreme Court. Their decision on Citizens United, opening up the opportunity for billionaires to buy elections, in history is one of the worst decisions.
Are we happy that 99% of all new income is going to the top 1%? Are we happy that one family in this country owns more wealth than the bottom 130 million people? Here's the simple truth, that in America we have millions and millions of working people who are working hard but are not making enough money to put bread on the table or to take care of their kids, and that has got to end. Today, with your support and the support of millions of people throughout our country, we begin a political revolution to transform our country economically, politically, socially, and environmentally. Enough is enough. This great nation and its government belong to all of the people and not to a handful of billionaires.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of We the People. Today we have David Sparks. He is going to be running for the 43rd District of Ohio as a Democrat. So welcome, David.
Hey, thank you very, very, very much for having me. And I, like I said, once again, apologize for my tardiness in the midst of the chaos that is the Bernie Sanders campaign.
Hey, it's life, right? That's what we're all dealing with, trying to juggle life and also putting in some extra effort to help our fellow man. So we thank you for taking the time to jump in and come and help us by sharing your views and what you're doing over there in Ohio. I'm sorry. I wanted to also mention that the intro song today was done by David Sparks. And so that's exciting for me because I'm also a musician. I love to play music just as a stress relief, but also for fun times with friends. And you did it for a much deeper purpose by putting this video together. So I wanted to give you time during this discussion for you to also talk a little bit about your creative side that you have. But if you would like, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers today?
Yeah, my name is David Sparks. I am 48 years old. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, Clayton, Ohio, depending upon which mailbox or post office you want to ascribe me to. But that's I'm running for state representative as a Democrat in Ohio's 43rd district. The state legislature in Ohio is made up of 99 folks, and I am vying to have one of those spots right now. It's around 2/3 Republican controlled in Ohio, heavy gerrymandering, but this is a winnable district. And after working on the Bernie campaign since last August here in Dayton, not on the Bernie campaign like I'm a campaign member, it was just grassroots people showing up saying, hey, we got to get stuff done. We got to start doing it now. And a guy who's now in Boston named Alex Coventry came down here and showed up and said, we got to have a meeting. And about 60 people just showed up on a few days' notice at our local Democratic Party. And we started a Bernie group. And from that point, we started canvassing all over the city, door to door, going to music festivals, going out flyering, anywhere we could find a lot of people. And then that just kind of grew, and I've always been political, and it's very much tied in with my artwork and music. They are a reflection of that side.
Well, now you also went to college as well. Did you study music when you were in college?
No, I didn't. Actually, I have a liberal studies degree from Wright State University with concentrations in philosophy, the classics, and the humanities.
So this is really a creative love, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's very much a creative love. Well, I think life's a creative love, the whole experience. And
well, I believe the reason we bring up the word creative so much in this show today is because you are a unique candidate that I really wanted others to understand is you're definitely unlike the other people we've interviewed so far. Tim Canova is a law professor. Terrence Strait is someone who's doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we don't actually get to see, like the census stuff, So I really wanted to showcase a little bit during the beginning some of the things that you've done that have been political, but also have not been necessarily in the government yet, that I do think are impacting your community. So
go back to where we talked the other day. I started out, I think I was like 22 or 23 years old, and got hired at a weekly newspaper in Miamisburg, Ohio, and then went on to work down the road at the Middletown Journal, Franklin Chronicle newspapers. I covered everything from government to education, did column writing. We did photography. The papers there when I worked on them. We got the Miamisburg paper. We had more awards than any small paper in the state at that time, and I also worked as a sports editor. It's kind of not government related, but covering sports in the schools and the whole kind of operation aspect of it as well. And that kind of I did that, and I worked at a business newspaper as well. And I guess I was about. It was after that I got involved in doing interactive design work, kind of really about the time the internet started, and so I got into that for a while, and then a few years later had, I guess you guys would say, an office space moment to where I was just like, I've had enough of the corporate world, and set out to not be involved in that anymore. And it's been a struggle at times, but it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made, going forth and saying, I'm going to do what I want to do during my days here on Earth, not what some other person wants me to do. And I got involved. I worked for 7 years for Dayton Public Schools, driving school buses. And I put in a job application. I'm like, I need to do something. And they gave me a call back, and I was like, this sounds like kind of like fun. And it actually was one of the funnest experiences of my life. Although it was tough getting up in the morning and getting back home late at night, like totally bushed. Dealing with, there's a lot you have to deal with, kids and parents and all that. Overall, it was one of the most positive experiences I've ever had, working with people in Dayton Public Schools.
It sounds like it gave you a good perspective, too, about what's going on out there, and really showed you some of the issues that needed to be addressed.
Yes, and a lot of those, one of those big ones are charter schools, which have cost the the public schools such an enormous amount of money and ability to do what they do well, or as well, lacking the funding. They're really soaking millions of dollars out of schools in Ohio and not providing better results. And so, yeah, that experience got me intimately involved in the whole situation in schools. And I've also done teaching in schools as well. I'm about 3 credits short of an education degree too.
Well,
So I've done a lot of classroom teaching. And with that, and I also was getting at, like, when I was working in transportation at Dayton Public, I was elected union vice president. And so I got intimately involved in defending workers in the workplace, from contract violations, negotiating a new contract for the transportation department, which we accomplished a lot of things. And so that kind of like, like I said, I've always been political. My family's like Jimmy Carter Democrat, like Southern Baptist Jimmy Carter Democrats.
Yes, and you have a video on YouTube of talking with your mom, and it says she's from Kentucky.
Yeah, they live in Frankfort, Kentucky. And but yeah, the union experience really, I guess, kind of like launched me as far as like I'm getting active in politics, at some level. And so after I got,
what was it? What was the one factor or was there some factor that just inspired you to say, you know what, I'm running? Or was it just kind of, some people it's a snowball effect, and they just say that there's just too many issues to deal with that I can't stop but try, I can't do anything but try to run for office. What was it for you that was kind of the breaking point?
Well, I don't know if I consider it a breaking point for office, but when I was involved in like the union, I realized that within the structure of the system, as many problems as there are ways to do good. And one of the things I was involved in was getting $30,000 worth of back pay for new drivers who had been underpaid for like I think it was like the last part of the year. And we went around and around, and I had to, we filed grievances and went through the whole process, and they put off as much as they could and finally paid these people. And I realized, if you fight and you don't let up, and you say, here, look right here, here's the evidence, here's where you're screwing these people out of their money, and say you're going to pay these people and you're going to do them right, you can do well, and you can do good for humanity. And so from that kind of point on, I was like, if you don't have good politics, whether it's in your workplace, whether it's in your community, whether it's in your state, bad things can happen. When you have good politics and people doing good things, they can go after what's right for people and what's right for the most people, which I think is the biggest problem in our political system today. Is things are being done right for a tiny sliver of people who grotesquely overfund the political system, and there's a reason they do that.
Yeah. Well, while people are listening here, I hope that they understand that we have a candidate here for Ohio that is started out working to help Bernie become president, and here he is now ready to take on people in the establishment there in Ohio to try and help things. So if you are thinking of running or thinking of starting anywhere, consider your local government, consider state or federal, go to the Congress and help Bernie. If you want to find out more, you can find a lot of resources from any of the people who are running, including just going to berniesanders.com and trying to find other volunteers that are interested in running too. But David, I wanted to have, before we have John come on, and see if we have any comments or questions from the audience. If you put them on YouTube in our comment chat, we'll be able to address them with David throughout the show. This last thing I wanted to ask was, your wife is Audra Sparks, and was she running for a delegate position as well? And because I was looking through and I wanted to make sure if she was, that we give her a shout out, because anyone who's running to help Bernie.
Yes, she is the delegate in District 10 for Bernie. She was the top female vote-getting delegate in District 10. And,
awesome.
When are we going to book her? Let's have her on.
That's a good question. She's fantastic, actually. I mean, she's probably the better talker than I am. But,
Well, let her know if she wants to come on the show. I'd love to talk to her. We'd love to interview her too.
yeah, she would probably enjoy it.
So John Spalding is going to be doing our comment moderation today. So welcome, John. Hello.
Hey, Angela. Hey, David. Hi, John. Hi, everybody out there. Thanks for having me. And so yeah, we got some good comments already, Dave. So let's see. Aniko says that she already likes you. You were holding a dog in the opening picture, so you get props for that. She also said that another creative running for office. Yes. Dutch for Bernie says we need more progressives in offices on the state level. There's way too many states turning red, so hopefully you'll be able to stave off that tide. Hannah wants to know how. There's two good questions right here off the bat. How's Bernie faring in Ohio, in your opinion?
I think people are feeling the burn here. And I say that from actually being on the ground for Bernie since last August. You know, a lot of people don't realize when they talk about, oh, the campaigns are swinging into town. The Clinton campaign is swinging into town for the last 6 days before the election. Bernie's campaign has had people doing things on their own and campaigning for Bernie since last August. And not only campaigning for Bernie, but building the infrastructure of a progressive political movement. Where
yeah, it's been pretty fascinating in all the states to watch it happen. It's great to hear that it's happening in Ohio.
Yes, I think that's the biggest gift that Bernie has given us, has been the fact that now we know who we are. And there's lots of us here. And we really like each other. One of the greatest things is meeting other Bernie people. You know, they come in all shapes, stripes, all kinds of backgrounds. Fascinating. I've met MIT graduates to Vietnam veterans to just every kind of person you can imagine, and they all have a commonality of wanting our country to do better and wanting our country to be a more enjoyable, fulfilling place to live instead of a kind of Hobbesian rule of the economic jungle scenario that this mass corporatization has given us. It's given us a lot of situations where it's hard for people to live fulfilling lives, and I think that's a tragedy, and we need to rectify that.
That's cool. On that note, what is the most important political issue? And this is from Alice S. What is the most important issue to you politically on a national or regional scale, and then on a national scale? I'm sorry, on a local or regional scale, and then on a national scale.
Both would be money in politics, because that is the linchpin for all the other issues. If you want to have open, fair elections, debate, so on and so forth, that is fair and accessible and completely democratic, you've got to get the money out of politics. Quite simple, because we're always going to have people who are bought for interests as long as we've got it there, and so that's number one. That's not to mean that I think money in politics means more than someone's civil rights or anything like that. But that's the issue we've got to get to until we can get to all the others, because if you can buy everything, then it doesn't matter. What I think is most important. If you can buy the politics, then it doesn't matter what anyone thinks is most important. If it can all be bought.
A follow-up to that, what do you think is one of the major issues in Ohio?
I would say it had to be income inequality, and just although the economy has improved in Ohio, the depths of economic damage that did happen is going to take decades to recover from. And so I think the biggest issue in Ohio is jobs and getting employment that is not only just employment, but is living wage employment. You've got, I read the other day that my own area has like the fourth highest concentration of fast food restaurants in America. Around the Dayton area.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I was speaking to a group of union guys about the $15 an hour minimum wage, and one of them had put up like, well, how's that going to affect guys who are at a skill level above burger flipping, and I was like, 28%, the average person working in fast food now is 28 years old with children,
Yeah.
No, it's not like the what we grew up thinking. Oh, the teenagers are going to McDonald's for a job. And, these are like, because the vertebrae of so many economies have been stripped by outsourcing. This is what's often left, and we're either going to pay, have people working at subsistence wages and then paying lots of money for to absorb the social costs from this, either through things like food benefits, cash assistance, through the forth. Or we're going to pay them in a positive way to where we don't have that whole back end support that we have to give, because people are living in abject poverty, working 40 hours a week. That's
and we have to remember how that's how this all even came about. The amount of corruption in our laws due to allowing such large amounts of money to control the people who make our laws. It's allowed a lot of roadblocks for people over time by funneling money up to the 1%, even higher than that. And it's not allowed the people who have been working to have their wages go up with inflation, to go up with the times, and to keep up with demand. And because of it, there's been so many communities that have been like not fallen through the cracks, have been like, there's been a cavern that's been opened up, and they've been like literally shoveled through, like they don't matter. Well, and that's exactly why you're running, because they do matter. Every one of them matters.
Every person matters, and that's not a response to Black Lives Matter or anything like that. But as far as in the economic and our social and cultural and political realm, every person matters. We have way too many people who in our economic sphere are treated as if they don't matter at all, and they're just really kind of chattel for the machine. And I think that is immensely wrong. If you work 40 hours a week, which is a lot of work, there's no reason you should like, oh, I got to go find another job for 40 hours to pay my bills. And that has that has a lot of cascading effects. That has the effects of children being left alone because people can't afford, and the problems that comes from that, and other type things. When we had a guy today who's like, I grew up in an abusive family and watched my dad, belittle and beat my mom for years and years and years. She was a minimum wage worker, and she would say, oh, next year we're going to get out of this. Next year we're going to get out of this. Can you imagine if she would have had $15 minimum wage and could have said, we're out of this at the beginning? So
well, and a lot of families too, they can't get out of it, especially if they've saved up money and they have a car problem, or one of their kids gets sick and they go to the hospital.
So yes, that's a income and jobs, but like I said, are really big in Ohio because we lost so many. Like this area lost something like 10 General Motors plants and all the associated industries with those, which most people and manufacturing had the highest job producing effect of any industry as far as I know.
It sounds like we don't really. It sounds like many of the country still doesn't understand the depth of destruction that has happened from moving many of our production facilities overseas.
And our wages as well. When I go and I'm talking to people about the $15 wage, and they're like, and I show them the graph of wages versus productivity since the 1980s. A lot of people have seen where productivity just, we keep kicking ass, but our wages don't. And that's got to stop, because it's causing communities not to be great places to live, because when you've got a lot of poverty, it drives crime. If someone's afraid that they're going to get kicked out of their house, they're willing to do things that may not be legal to stay in their house, to keep their mother from getting kicked out of the home, or something like that.
It should be a crime to crush the human spirit, shouldn't it, in some form? I mean, because when we put people into poverty like that, what we're doing is we're not just stripping them of opportunity, but we're psychologically damaging them and causing abuse to them and to their generations to come, to the families that they are trying to take care of.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So, these votes are important. You running for office is important, and I hope others continue to stand up.
Yeah, well, I told you the other day about the property abandonment problem around here. The city has around 10,000 empty homes sitting in various states of repair, and that's not even including any of the industrial buildings where there's lots and lots of. And that has a psychological effect on the population. Mm-hmm. It makes people think that this world is really not worth bothering for, or getting up and bothering with, or caring about. When you see that kind of just kind of wanton abandonment of our economy, and simultaneously our population who was a part of this economy and made it what it was. That has a large psychological effect on people, and it really makes them look at the world, if they're not careful. It can really be a very, very negative thing. If you see poverty all around you, and you see neglect, and you see that, then you're not going to think, oh, what a great world! I can't wait to get up today.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's a natural human response to that. So,
I know a lot of people. You mentioned how wonderful it was to get to know other Bernie supporters, and I wanted to mention too that I've been thinking about that. As I've met at least 100 different people all over the country that I've been working with and volunteering in so many different capacities over the last, since I was really noticing since around April when he started running. And so I really feel like there's so many of us out there realizing that, hey, we've been living our lives to try and give love to the world when we can, and to really understand that we need to be there for each other. We deserve respect, and we want to give that mutual respect to our fellow humans. And so it's really disheartening when we see our government completely going against that, or people in the government. And so one of the things is when Bernie talks about with everybody, and he says it takes all of us, I wanted to make it clear that I don't think he's saying it takes everyone going to the polls and voting, and that's it. What he's saying is it takes us going to our local government and deciding that we're going to run for city council, because those are the people who are taking money that's trickling down to the only people in the country. That trickle-down effect is only happening if they agree to do something the rich 1% ask them to do. And they're not asking, they're telling them to do it. And people like David Sparks are standing up and saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that because you're leaving 100,000 people in the cold. There's a better solution, and we're going to figure it out. So I hope other people will continue to think about that. When he is saying it takes all of us, he's asking, would you be interested in doing some sound editing for Bernie TV? Would you be interested in phone banking and taking the time for an hour to just call a couple people and find out if they remembered that it's the day to vote, and find out if they want to vote for Bernie? Those kinds of things are so small, but they have made huge impacts in this election and also in everyone else's lives. At some point, you decided, David, to run, right? You said, you know what, I'm going to run. There was some morning you woke up and said, I'm actually going to do this. And I hope that we have a lot more of those kinds of epiphanies happening all over the country, because then Bernie's quote of saying it takes all of us will come true, because he will have everyone in local governments, state governments, and federal governments standing side by side with him saying, hey, we all count, every one of us. Stop looking at him because his color is different. Stop looking at her because she's wearing a scarf. You need to look in their eyes, look at them as humans, and understand that they deserve better, and we all deserve better. So with that giant, soapbox speech I just gave, John, if you would like to run that quick video, it's Shia LaBeouf is. I think it's a funny little parody, but it's for Ohio, calling voters out to vote. So I think we should take it as a nationwide call because it's kind of a humorous thing. But when we come back, we'll talk more about Wall Street and the economy and a few other things that David wants to do to help Ohio.
Do it! Do it!
Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it!
All right, I'm pretty sure everyone got the message from that video. But that's kind of what we're saying today is, like this is David Sparks with We the People, and he's one of those people that's just doing it. And when we mean that, I mean he's running for Congress. He's running for the 43rd District of Ohio. And John, if you would like to show slide 9, it's talking about the economy. And what we'll do is, David, you're also a web developer, so you have made your own website as well, and it's fantastic. So I ask for everybody to go to David. I think it's votedavidsparks.org. I'm going to look that really quick. Yep, votedavidsparks.org. That's slide 2 if you want to show the website, John. And it's got lots of great information. It's really wonderful. So it gives people a chance to figure out where you stand on issues, but also to give you like a jumping point to ask you questions. So if you think of, if you viewers see anything on his website you'd like to talk with them about today, please put it in the YouTube chat comments and we'll be sure to bring it up in a few minutes. So David, would you like to talk about slide 9? We're going to show the economy one. We'll just kind of wrap up one final note. If you wanted to say anything else about Ohio's economy or anything specifically with your district that you're in.
Ohio's economy has improved a little bit under the Obama administration. It has, it came from a long way down. We've got, like I said, a long way to go. We also have some really big issues as a nation and as a state around things like climate change, greening our economy. We need to make a race to do that, not because we want to, because the science tells us we have to.
Well, and you have actually, John, if you'd like to go to slide, since we're talking about that, we could go ahead and bring those slides up now. In Ohio, because it was largely a manufacturing state for a long time, slide 15, John, is the great, wonderful page from his website about the environment and the policies that he's looking to try and help Ohio's voters. Some of those we've got some slides about some of the pollution issues. What's it like in Dayton when it comes to pollution? What are the kinds of things that you would be trying to instill into the laws that would, I guess, help protect what's been happening?
Well, one of the big issues here, and it's not just an issue for Ohio, but the entire Midwest, and is algae blooms. And if you're not familiar with algae blooms, essentially you get a if there's a scientist out there who corrects me, please correct me, but it's you get a overabundance of nitrogen in the water. Am I correct? Yes.
I think so.
And everything's feeding on the nitrogen, and you just get lots and lots and lots. There's just an overabundance of algae, and you get some of these things that can be neurotoxic and super toxic, and it causes an issue for drinking water, swimming health, being around water. I know they had a lake about an hour from us, St. Mary's Lake, that was just put out of business for a few years by the water look like almost like a chemical. I mean,
Well,
it looked like,
just in September, there was like a 600-mile bloom that was happening there too. That was really wild.
it looks like deep, dark green antifreeze. If you actually pull it out of the water. I mean, it's like the water is just thick and like completely invisible through it.
Yeah, and that water is actually full of a lot of other things. It's not like it's just healthy nitrogen that's being produced. And that's what people may need to understand is there's, like when we're talking about excessive algae, their reason they're there is because there's something that's in excess in the environment. It's out of balance. And so because of it, the algae are jumping in their symbiotic way and taking over. And so some of the other stuff too, like on a slide, I think it's slide 16, John, it talks about the top polluters along the Ohio River and also kind of mercury content and stuff going on in there because it's a large manufacturing state or has, a lot of avenues to other states that have a lot of industries, there's a lot of stuff in the water. And so it's not like Flint, Michigan is an isolated situation. There's a lot of places that have this kind of pollution going into their water supply. And how is Ohio, like you're in Dayton, but how is the water for you guys there? Like what kind of issues besides the algae blooms?
Yeah, the city of Dayton in this area has like one of the best water supplies in all of America. A lot of people say it's the Saudi Arabia of water here, and it's one of our like most precious resources. Recently, a very controversial decision made by 5 Democratic Party Dayton City Commissioners voted to reduce the size of the protected water area by about 20%. And 6 months later, now we're hearing that different manufacturers are moving into the now unprotected water area. And only they could speak for why they voted that way, but I think that's going back to money and politics again. If you don't get that out, because who is making it easy for people to pollute in our rivers? Giant giant coal interests, energy interests, fossil fuel interests. They pay these guys, over and over, and those who you pay usually deliver. If I pay the pizza guy, promise to pay him $20 if he delivers for me, and I give him the money. It's a relationship we've established, and so that's the problem with the money in politics is that the relationships between the polluters and the legislators are so close because we allow them to openly, not openly bribe them, but really essentially at the scale of campaign finance that we have, pretty much bribes. If you can like say, oh, I see your opponent only has $20,000 for his campaign. I'll give you $3 million if you're, reasonable towards my,
Excuse me.
my pollution business. And so we can go into like technical details of the what's in the water and about how to get it out, but why is it getting in there to begin with? Because people are bribing politicians to make it easy for them, to write, to basically defang the EPA in many ways when it comes to policing polluters. And so, it all goes back to money and politics.
Which is why too, when we talk about the environment, we're also talking about things like trade. We're talking about the TPP, we're talking about NAFTA, which really destroyed large amounts of the East Coast manufacturing states. And, we have a video. John, if you would like to show that, it's actually of Bernie Sanders giving a little speech talking about the TPP. And while the video is playing, viewers, if you have any comments or questions regarding this, why don't you type into the YouTube chat, and that way John can bring them up after we have this discussion. So let's watch this video first.
One of the differences between Secretary Clinton and myself is that she supported NAFTA, she supported permanent normal trade relations with China. I helped lead the opposition to those trade agreements. I was right, she was wrong. Look, you don't need, I suppose we have some PhDs in economics here, but you don't need one to understand what these trade policies are about. It's not complicated. You have a large corporation, and right now you're paying a worker in the United States 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour. You got to provide health care. You got to protect environmental legislation and regulations. Why would you want to do that when you could shut down in America, move abroad, pay people pennies an hour, not worry about unions, not worry about the environment, and bring your product back into America? That's what these trade agreements are, nothing more complicated than that. Since 2001, we've lost 60,000 factories in America, a lot of that having to do with disastrous trade agreements. If elected president, we will fundamentally rewrite trade agreements in this country. Corporate America, every night, turn on the TV, they say, buy this product, buy that product. Well, if they want us to buy these products, maybe they better start manufacturing those products in Ohio and America.
So that was one of the many, many awesome speeches that Bernie has given on this campaign trail. And I love that in that clip he actually mentioned Ohio this time. And so, David, I wanted to see if there was anything else you wanted to add to what he was saying, because we know that you have helped volunteering throughout already to help him with his campaign. We know that you're a supporter. But we'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about some of the policies that you support of his. Obviously, you guys are quite aligned when it comes to the TPP and environmental issues. But I wanted to find out if there was any others that you felt like adding at this time before we take some questions.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of his wanting a ban on private prisons and demilitarization of the police forces. My father was a policeman. I was a soldier. I can't really see for any reason. I mean, I know there are situations where the police do need to armor up, but that is such a rare situation that shouldn't be like the police shouldn't be armored up out in just going around their regular business. So I do definitely support the demilitarization. They don't need tanks and MRAPs. Of course, they need protection such as body armor if they're going into a situation where it's super dangerous. Someone may have a gun, a mentally ill person. Yeah, I'm not saying that police don't need to protect themselves, but the just kind of grotesque, and a lot of this comes from overspending by Homeland Security. They didn't. What are we going to do with all these giant crowd control vehicles? Police departments, I guess. I don't know how that decision got made. Because for example, the Ohio State University was given an MRAP. What exactly do 18 to 20 something year old students generally? Where is the threat that perceived is going to come from? Generally like kind of out of control keg parties are the the big thing, as far as like public menace, but nothing like that would, those are things we've all went through when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, I've seen things, when I was younger that, would just, the kids would have been like instantly thrown in jail and beaten today for doing, that people were like, oh, they're kids, let's clean the situation up, and, the adults dealt with the kids, and it wasn't like this, oh, we need to send in the police force and shove everyone to the ground and put a knee in their neck.
So what do you think has happened? I mean, I'm just curious about this because I've been thinking about this for a while. The last 20, 30 years, like I remember growing up and adults around me were talking about how we're all equal. I mean, I know that there was a lot of subtle racism happening everywhere. and a lot more unconscious racism happening as well in the 90s and early 2000s. But I'm just curious to know what has it been like for you on the East Coast, because over here there's been it feels like there's been quite an awakening over the last decade, especially. A lot of people are really standing up for each other and vocalizing what they learned as younger people. I know that's millennials, but even older generations are more vocal, especially Bernie supporters are quite vocal about the equality in us all. And I'm wondering, do you see that wave happening outside of the Bernie group amongst you guys over in Ohio, or is there a lot of, like, just what you were talking about earlier, that sense of just complete loss of hope, that it's, people really need to be encouraged to rally a little bit more? Because I know here we've got, massive rallies. You've got massive rallies. We want to make sure that we reach out to those people in the community that don't know about Bernie, that may be feeling that way, or that have that sense of, loss or confusion about what direction to take when they feel that sense of equality, but they don't see it played out in their community.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm trying to figure what you're trying to ask exactly.
Well, I guess I was just saying, like, you see the people over there rallying for Bernie, and what can we tell voters who aren't Bernie supporters yet, that I guess that would be giving them that sense of hope, because we see the equality and we're not giving up. Why are we not giving up? Why is it that Bernie supporters, before we were Bernie supporters, we had that sense of equality, and it's just been running through us?
We're not giving up. I would say, like, we were talking about the situations where the environment can get people depressed, but even in that, I see people don't quit. People keep on fighting. It's just people that go to Detroit, or any of these cities are like, man, these people are scrappy as hell. We're scrappers and fighters, and so we've been through this before the rest of America was. We saw 2008 about 20 years before 2008.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and like you said, you had 60 volunteers in Ohio jumping up right away when Bernie said, I'll do it.
An enormous outpouring of love and excitement around Bernie, because nobody has, essentially I hear a lot of people say about politics, they're going to do what they're going to do, and I'm not going to bother with it because of that. But there's a sense of Bernie that he's not just going to do what he feels like doing, because number one, he's not bought by anyone. He doesn't owe any of these, he doesn't owe Exxon favors. He doesn't owe Shell. He doesn't owe Bank of America favors.
Right.
And
for your campaign, are you taking private donations through your website? Is that how people can donate for you?
Yes, you can go to my website at votedavidsparks.org. You can donate on the site. You can become like a monthly. If you want to give $5 or $10 or whatever a month, you can subscribe to have it automatically taken. You can give a one-time donation. If you'd like to donate on Act Blue, there's a link on my site. It'll take you right to the Act Blue page, because a lot of people say, I like to go to Act Blue because they got all my credit card in there. I don't have to enter anything again. So, yeah, you can get to my Act Blue page directly through my webpage, and under the donate button it says Act Blue, and yeah.
And you're not accepting super PACs either, so we want to make sure people know that.
No, this is I have, as of last count, I have about $1,300 in my campaign, my massive campaign chest, and that's $1,300 more than we started with. And we have been knocking on doors and calling people and making visits, and this is going to be, I say, a peanut butter. It's a campaign fueled by peanut butter and jelly.
Well, be sure to donate for sure. So
I've been told they're going to spend up to $3 million against me if there's any kind of threat. And so I would love to win an election on about 1% of what my opponent spent, because we're going to try to visit. Not going to try. We're going to knock on 30,000 doors between now and November, and we're going to be at county fairs, parades, neighborhood watch meetings, school board meetings, out on the side of the road with my sign that says votedavidsparks.org in real big letters, and handing people stuff. And and sending people to my website where they'll be able to watch things like this video to like get a better idea about like who is this guy who just like ran for office. That was an interesting process into itself. Like I don't think a lot of people realize, in some states at least, how easy it is to get on the ballot. I'm running in a general election unopposed in the primary because no other Democrats could get 50 signatures, valid signatures, to get on the ballot. And what I did to get on the ballot, I went and got my signature pack from the County Board of Elections. And I went to a local town who I knew was highly Democratic and stood in the parking lot of the grocery store for like 3 days, and got like 196 signatures. And then I whittled those down, made sure I threw out any that had a lot of them that weren't valid for any reason, whether they might not have been registered to vote and I got on the ballot, and now I'm the winner of the primary now since I voted for myself as an early voter. I won my first election by voting for myself, and now I'm going into the general, and it's going to be, I'm not although I do know about government, I know, I have experience in like government operations, not like elected official operations, but how one segment of it, of course, kind of operates, and.
Well, you got the heart, though, and I think that's the most important part. That's actually one of those things I was telling a friend today. It occurred to me that my true litmus test for whether I feel as a candidate is worthy of my vote is if I can trust them. If I can't trust them, I don't even consider voting. And I find it interesting that that's how I feel. I know a lot of other people have done, taken the Bernie Your Best pledge or things like that. But congratulations on your vote. Let's get more people voting for David Sparks out there, and also donating to his campaign at votedavidsparks.org.
Yes.
We do want to, I know that we're getting close to our time. I want to make sure we don't go too far over because Bernie's going to be speaking soon. We wanted to go to slide 21 just really quick so we can show everyone. These are some of the cities in Ohio that you can go that have Bernie offices. So if you're looking to volunteer to help Bernie Sanders or get in touch with David Sparks, I'm sure that the Bernie campaign offices will be directing people to David. But we want to make sure that you guys have a chance. There's a couple places like Akron, and there's Cleveland. There's 3 in Cleveland. And so be sure to check out those locations if you are looking for questions about how to phone bank or Canvas or any of those things in Ohio. Slide 22 is about the primary. We saw that really funny video. Obviously, March 15th is probably ingrained in everybody's heads now. So make sure you check out voteforbernie.org if you're wanting to find out from your state, if you're not from Ohio and you want to learn a little bit more about the primary situation for you. Our last slide before we go to questions with John is it's slide 23, John, and it's just a really cute picture of David and his wife that I thought it just encompasses everything that I think we're talking about when it comes to looking for people to represent the people who are of the people. And both of them are politically active in their community. Both of them are making big efforts to try and help Bernie Sanders as well. And I want to make sure that you notice their Twitter, their Facebook, his Reddit page, and give you a chance to get connected with David throughout the campaign and help him so that Ohio has a nice shining star for Bernie Sanders and David come state convention and election time. So John Spalding, do you have some questions for David? We had a whole bunch of stuff that we had covered.
Yeah, there are a bunch of comments and questions in here. Steffi's going to vote for you, just so you know that, David. There were people that were asking for your another Twitter account for you and where to go to donate. A couple people said that they think that they will give you money, so you've done your due diligence here tonight.
Right.
There are some great questions in here. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them, but there's some key ones. Dennis Schmidt wanted to know, how have the right to work laws affected Ohio?
I don't believe how have they affected Ohio? They're trying to get right to work in right now, and so they are fighting right to work.
Okay. And because I'm Batman says, what's your stance on education? Kasich isn't giving enough funding per student, and it's hurting their school. What's your stance on education? What would you do about
I
that?
would like to see us refund, put money, increase funding for education. I think they've. I read the other day it was like 1.9. I'm not sure the exact amount. $1 billion in cuts from education under the Kasich administration. We need to refund our schools. We can't teach kids if we can't afford to have our schools fully funded. I think I'm an opponent of charter schools. They've been around for about 15 years in Ohio now. They have not proven to be the big winner that everyone has sold them to be. One thing I found out working in transportation department of a public school system was that in the city of Dayton, like when I started working, there was 30-some charter schools that had opened up in addition to the elementary schools in the city. Well, any of those students from any of those charter schools from any geographic point in the city could choose to go to any of the charter schools. And the public schools had the obligation of transferring them to their schools. So you can imagine the labyrinth of complexity that added to the transportation system and the added resources that taking these kids from anywhere to anywhere put on the public schools. And so I am for good common public schools. One of the reasons I'm against charter schools as well is that they don't have local control. We give money to charter schools, but you can't go to the charter school board and say, I don't think you guys are doing a good job with your English department, or whatever you might have a problem with your local school's operations. You can't do that with a charter school, and they're funded with government money, so that's taxation without representation.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, good point. You really did. Your message about income inequality and raising the minimum wage and having jobs in terms of when you talked about productivity versus income, you really got a lot of kudos in the chat room for that. Alice S. wants to know, is there a lot of pushback from the business community in Ohio about raising wages locally?
There's not a lot of push to do it from the political class in Ohio. So there hasn't been like a push from the business community because we don't have a lot of progressive candidates running for office. I think it was 2012, they redistricted a lot of the state districts in Ohio. So my district, which had been a traditionally Democratic district going back to 1973, suddenly had a giant rural 70-30 in favor of the GOP district plopped right onto it. So during an election where not a whole lot of people showed up 2 years ago, the Republicans won the district for the first time since '73. So we need to get, and that's something I've told a lot of people. I said, I can't promise you anything as a legislator. As long as we have 60% Republicans, I'll promise you that I'll introduce things and fight for them. We need 99 more David Sparkses and 99 more Alex Laws, and we're just one person. Would be one of 99, and we need to realize this. And so I think going forward, after the Bernie campaign, we need to mobilize like massively to get mobilized on a local scale. How are all these where are all these people from the DNC? How do they get to the places they're at? Well, they get there because they and their peeps are involved on the local level all across the country. And so we need to get involved on the local level and run for. We need to get progressive groups to run for Democratic Central Committee in their county, and have a progressive caucus in every county in America. And I bet you'll find out after this Bernie campaign that we got more progressives in every county than the mainstream Dems got everywhere. And if we get in on that level, that means that we get to elect the people who make the rules.
Totally agree.
Wouldn't that be a novel idea?
That's what we're running for, and I think that that's one of the big parts of the Bernie campaign. is that, you know, he's not only running to be president, he's running to insert progressives in positions of power all across, of party power across the nation. So it's, you know, without just, if it's just a Bernie thing, it's like, yeah, we love Bernie, he's the greatest guy in the world. Yeah, I agree with you, but if it's just Bernie, and just Bernie's he's not gonna get us anywhere. It really does have to be a political revolution where you're like, oh my God, we didn't run a progressive in our district. We got to get someone for 2018. Oh my God, we didn't have any progressives on the school board. What are we doing? You know, we need to get out and get those signatures and run and don't make any apologies to anybody, because this is our democracy too. I served in the U.S. military, and I told people I will get in a machine gun fight for you because I love this country so much. And if they're going to block the democracy off to us, and we're going to sit back and watch it, you know, then it becomes a republic that it's not worth fighting for. You know, because if we're not going to be actively involved, and you know, people defending the country see that the people who are a part of the country don't care enough to keep people out of politics who would use them as pawns and cannon fodder, then eventually they're going to say, you know,
I'm moving to Canada or something, and they just
Well,
leave, and nothing
before.
is ever accomplished. Nothing's ever helped.
Well, yeah, you know, eventually, you know, people are going to say, you know, this isn't worth it. You know, it's just not worth. But you know, why do we need to do that? You know, when we have the opportunity to step up and say, hey, I'm gonna lead now. Oh, and I'm gonna lead, and I'm gonna lead, and I'm gonna lead. You know. We can't wait for like someone, you know, even if you can't run for office, you know, everyone has a role. You know, not everyone is, you know, not everyone is cut out to be everything. You know, we all have talents in different areas, and it's a vast mosaic of humanity that makes us so powerful.
It's exactly why we showed your video first before the show, and why we try to show as many artists for Bernie shows or music videos as we can, and all of our live streams. Actually, it seems like we're always showing other people's work, because we really want people to see that you could contribute something, and it could start out as a Bernie doll, and suddenly they're everywhere, and it's raising funds for him. And you know, it might seem silly, but it could be quite effective in getting the message out, which is really what we're actually all pushing for, isn't it? It's not that we're voting for Bernie. We are voting for a massive change, and like your website is great about detailing a lot of that stuff, so people please go to vote for davidsparks.org. You can also go to berniesanders.com too to learn more about him. I know that we're probably wrapping up now, so if we're ready for that last video, if we don't have enough time, we can certainly go straight to the live event, John, whatever you need. But I wanted to give David one last 30 seconds to say something before we cut to the end of our show. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. I was at lunch with the head of the Ohio House Democratic Caucus the other day, and they were like, you know, they're telling me how like you're going to get trashed on television. You know, they're going to say, you know, Republicans say all kinds of nasty things. You know, you don't have that much money. Why are you doing this? And my answer to them was, because I know I'm going to die someday, and I want to leave a better place than when I came. And if you know you're going to die, and that's your finality anyway, then why do you care what Republicans say about you in this life? You know, I welcome their hatred. It's, you know, I love it when someone gets, you know, someone selfish gets upset about someone wanting to stand up for poor people and wanting to stand up for things like single-payer health care and funding education properly. I love it. It's awesome. And so we should all like think, you know, this, you know, bring it on. We'll feed on, you know, feed on that rage, because we're for doing the right thing, not like discriminating against people, not being nasty to people. We want to see people do better and have more fulfilling lives, make more money, and have a better family life, and less for all in society. And that's not a bad thing, and I don't apologize for it to anybody.
Wow. Well, I just wanted to thank you, David, so much for coming on today and talking with us. We still had even more stuff to talk about, so we'll have to have you back on soon.
I would love to
We
come.
cover a lot more topics. And I wanted to thank John Spalding for doing on-air comment mod. You're seriously a rock star. And also thanks to John Ellis. He's back behind the scenes doing production as usual, and he's going to be the one transferring you guys over to that next live event coming up soon. It'll be Bernie Sanders speaking. So I hope you guys have a wonderful time watching Bernie, and please keep sharing those clips of Bernie out there. I know that it's definitely making an impact. And thanks again to everyone for being on the show today, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.
And I hope very much that in this election, to the degree that you are eligible for the caucus night, that you want to participate, I hope you will. I don't care who you're voting for. But I hope you'll come out, and I certainly hope that in years to come, you will be actively involved in the political process. And if your friends, people your age, say, you're dumb, why are you worried about these things? I hope you look them straight in the eye and say, I'm not dumb. I am fighting for the future of my country.
To fear is fear itself. Huge